In essence, it's a welcoming, open arms. It's welcoming into secret women's business, into the women's mysteries. It's like acknowledging that this young girl, this maiden, has come of age to now receive the wisdom which we, to some degree, for want of a better word, we kind of protect the children from, because we allow the children to be in the magical childhood and we preserve their innocence and we are protectors and guardians of that. But when we open the doors and the gateway into womanhood, which is through the wisdom of the womb and through sensuality and sexuality and all the juice, that, okay, well, you're ripening now, you're welcome into this space.
Welcome to Wildflow, the podcast with me, your host, Charlotte Pointeau. I'm a wild feminine cycle coach here for the awakened woman who is ready to reclaim her body, menstrual cycle and feminine power, and to live, love and lead in flow with nature's wisdom. In this podcast, I'll share how you can live in sync with your menstrual cycle and life seasons, heal your relationship with your womb and rites of passages, and embody your wild feminine as a multi-passionate woman in life, mothering and business. It's your time to flourish as a cyclical being in this modern world. Are you ready? Let's flow. Empowering young people through their very first period, their menarche rite of passage, is really big, really special work. Something that I'm incredibly passionate about and love to do in my own circles, guiding young people in my community to know what to expect and how to thrive and feel supported and celebrated at such a pivotal point in their lives. And I also train other people to hold these circles so that more and more communities have access to really beautiful, holistic and empowering menarche, rite of passage, education and celebrations. Today's guest, Donna Raymond, is somebody else who is equally passionate, so passionate about this same experience, supporting others through this very same rite of passage. She has recently supported and celebrated and held a beautiful ceremony for her own daughter who experienced her menarche recently, and as such has written a book for mothers to be able to support their own children through this beautiful rite of passage, and then so that they can spread the word, the wisdom outwards into their communities, into their friends. On today's episode, I talk with Donna all about the importance of menarche in a young person's life, the connection to blood and cyclic wisdom, also to lineage, past and present and future, and to a person's personal power, how they can access this power through how well they're supported at this really pivotal time. Donna Raymond is a sacred feminine educator and mentor, visionary creative, author, modern mystic, ceremonialist, and mother of 4, residing in the quaint rainforest village of Kuranda in North Queensland, Australia. Over the past decade, she has created and facilitated hundreds of women's circles, workshops, ceremonies, transformational healing journeys, as well as other online courses and facilitator trainings, and wisdom keeper apprenticeships through her Wise Woman Wisdom School, which serves as a platform to educate, empower, and inspire change in the world. This is a really powerful episode for anybody who identifies with female, anyone who experiences a menstrual cycle, or even if they have before and now no longer do. So for all people who, regardless of which stage of life you're at, and if you're a parent of a daughter or a person with a menstrual cycle, who, it doesn't matter how old they are, who you are thinking that you would really love to be able to support. If you just want to understand the connection of menarche to a person's life and blood and the rites of passages, this is a really beautiful episode to listen into. I hope that you enjoy this. Welcome to Donna Raymond to the podcast. It's so lovely to have you here and to meet you. I've been following you and supporting your work and your beautiful book, and it's such a It's so lovely to have the opportunity to meet you, even though we are not in person over technology. But how are you today? Welcome.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you for having me. I'm feeling really well. I am feeling quite clear and grounded despite minimal sleep at the moment. I am in a very wild, visionary creatrix mode, but I'm here and I'm feeling really light and expansive in my body. And I'm really excited to see what comes through in this conversation together. So thank you so much for having me here, and to all your beautiful listeners, to being received in this way. I hope that whatever I share comes through with humor and clarity and all the goodness.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. So to that, you've just shared how it feels for you to be in your body today. I'd love to ask if you're happy to share your cycle day check-in. So if you have a menstrual cycle, just sharing whereabouts you are in that cycle so we can get a sense of what, what that looks like, how that ties to your cycle.
Yeah. So I am transitioning between day 4 and day 5 of my bleed. So I'm right on the tail end. So I've come through the releasing and the shedding of the last month and all the intuitive gifts. And now I'm into that next opening and building cycle, which is really cool. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah. And so does that lend itself to you were just saying like that, how you're in that creatress visionary energy. Do you feel that that's sort of associated with your bleed?
Yeah, usually about 3 days before my bleed comes, I have this surge of energy, and it's like I liken it to the nesting mode, like before giving birth. I'm like doing things, and I'm like, I've like got so much untapped energy that needs to be channeled creatively. And I feel part of that process is because I create the space to rest during my bleed, and I honor that time to reflect and to go inwards into that, the death and rebirth regeneration cycle. So to then allow myself to rest and then come into the tail end, it's the integration period. It's the, okay, what gifts have I received and putting into my basket ready to build for the next month, and to work with my womb as like a powerful generator and manifesting, I see it as like a generator and a vortex. So it's like gathering the gifts and the medicine and putting new fuel into it to go, okay, what's this next cycle going to be about? So that's where I'm at the moment, which is exciting.
That's really cool. I love that. So I love the metaphor with the basket, and like you're heading into your basket. And just a side note, as you were saying that, like you were able to take the time to rest with your bleed and the way that you were able to honor that. Side note, how do you do that with 4 small children? Well, they're not all super small, but I know you have little ones.
It's one of those things that I have had to prioritize, and it is so easy for me to be in service mode as a mother. I mean, for all of us that are caretakers, whether we're actually a physiological, biological mother, or we're just in the season of motherhood, it's very easy for us to extend our energy outwards to other. And I can do that really well. So I have had to actually train myself and learn over time to prioritize this time for rest. And if it means that there's a bit of chaos in the house of like the domestic, I'm not the most domestic person anyway. Like that's not where my gifts are set. But if it just means that the washing's going to pile up for a day or two, it's going to be there. I can literally switch off from that and go and be on country, walk barefoot on land, just sit and be and enjoy a cup of tea as I've set my kids up with water, because that's usually the best way to totally distract them for hours on end. And I can just sink into my body and what it's asking me. What I've learned over the years, I call it the sneaky moments. I teach this with my students as well, is sometimes it's only 5 to 10 minutes if there's so much happening around me, but it's quality versus quantity in those moments. And a 5 to 10 minute full intention check-in with your body can be so valuable, rather than feeling like you're going against the grain to have a whole day, and especially for single mothers as well. And I've experienced that journey. So it's really working with what you've got and doing the best you can with what you've got and the resources that you have, while still prioritizing what you need and scaling it to what is of highest priority. So for me, I am an introvert as well. So I need moments where I just don't have anyone around me. And I need to drink a hot cup of tea that's uninterrupted, and just to have that and just go, I need to prioritize the exhale in my life and the letting go and releasing and surrendering and opening, because when I do, I'm filling my cup up and I'm extracting the juice of life, and I'm feeling more connected to the giving and the service, where it's like coming through me rather than coming from my source energy, if that makes sense. And then it becomes a holistic and symbiotic practice where I'm working with my cycle. I'm working with the seasons around me as well. So it's the macro and the microcosms, which we have in daily life, and then expanding it bigger into the seasons and cycle of the earth. So yeah, in a nutshell, prioritizing what your needs are and working with what you've got at the time, calling on support if you need it, and not being so hard on yourself if you miss, an opportunity to have an extended moment of time to rest. So that's where I'm at. That's how I feel about it.
Thank you. That's so helpful to hear. I reckon there'll be lots of listeners who will really relate to what you've shared there. I think it's really powerful what you said about just taking those teeny tiny pockets, the sneaky moments. I love that. And it's so true. I think, there's a lot of talk about, taking time off, like for your whole bleed. And yet that's not realistic when you've got kids, especially as a single mum. And it can be something that we just dismiss, like, women just dismiss. It's like, I just can't do that, so I'm not even going to try.
Or even working mothers too.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And what that can do is it can build a shame cycle, because you're unable to give yourself the needs. And so you disassociate and discard it and keep on keeping on, and just giving women the permission or opportunity to give themselves those small pockets, and they'll build and they'll compound over time, and you can build upon it. But you just start with something and make that intention, allow that to blossom and grow, which it will, because you'll get so much back from it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Welcome.
So we're here to talk today about your new book, which is called Maiden, A Mother's Guide to Puberty and Menarche as a Sacred Rite of Passage. And just firstly, congratulations. Congratulations on your book. It's so beautiful. Yeah, so good. And you self-published that too, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was a very big birthing journey. I wrote the book quite quickly. And just a side note, it wasn't the book that I was actually in the process of writing first. I was actually writing Maiden to Mother, which is about sacred pregnancy and like shamanic birthing wisdom and real embodied birthing, to work on the quite spiritual side, which is, I feel, is quite missing in a lot of birth texts. And then I had so many mothers asking me, because I've been doing women's work for over a decade now, and like, oh, what do we do with our daughters? And I was like, and they're like, you should write a book. And I'm like, yeah, I should, but I'm like doing this other thing. And then it came through really strongly when I started to actually sit down and write it, and it didn't take long to write at all. And I was like, oh, wow, this is actually a legacy series. And Maiden, of course, is the first, blood rite that we go through. It is a sacred rite of passage and an initiation, and how beautiful it is to actually start with that book as an offering. And the fact that my eldest daughter, who's on the front cover, Aurora Freedom, she was the one like, you should totally write this book, Mum, like, and document my ceremony and share that with your women. And I was like, what? Like, who is this? Like, this beautiful young 12-year-old girl. Like, are you serious? And she's like, yeah, totally. Like, and I was like, okay, wow, thank you so much. And so with her permission, I was able to kind of create that with her. And you'll see that there's a letter in the back from her, which I wanted to include, and from my mother as well. And I did extend it to Aurora's paternal grandmother, but she, for whatever reasons, it didn't come to pass that she shared a letter. But the intention for this book is not only for my daughters, I have 3 daughters, but every woman and man's daughter that's in the world, to share this wisdom, because I feel that if we can create intention and ceremony and beauty around a young girl's first bleed and initiation into womanhood, we are going to set this foundations for some really beautiful family dynamics, some really beautiful birthing practices, healthy relationships. And I really do believe that we can change the world in one generation. And it is going to start with us, which are the cycle breakers. And unfortunately, we didn't have those experiences for most of us, having ceremony and connection and being celebrated in that way. And so we can also heal our own wounds by guiding and initiating our daughters through. And it becomes so beautiful to witness and to be a person that just wrote a book and to be able to share that little key with everybody. I just feel so blessed and privileged to be in this position to be able to share in this way. And I'm so grateful that the book has been so well received. So yeah, I'm really excited about the ripples that this information and this wisdom shares. And in the book I also acknowledge the women that have walked before me. This information isn't new. There are so many women that have been at the forefront of the way showers, really up against some full-on cultural, sociological dynamics to share a voice and a new message of the way that things can be done better, or even connecting with our ancient primal roots. And I really create the time and space to acknowledge those women, because it's not just new stuff. This wisdom and information has been around for generations. It's just being more received these days. And, for yourself, having this amazing podcast and with all the work that you're doing with the first moon circles, and it's just really exciting to be a part of a global movement at the moment. So yay.
Thank you for all of that. I just love all of that. I think thank you for acknowledging that. I think it's really important to reflect on how, like you say, this is such ancient wisdom. But now we're at this point where it's being more received, and we've got more platforms to be able to share it. And the cultural shame around bodies and menstruation and women's rights has all been we've come quite a long way in more recent times, but it's been such a pervasive shame and the inequity that's been there for so long that it's fantastic to just be part of this story where we're reclaiming it and able to share it. It's I feel too such a privilege.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, first of all, going right back to kind of basics perhaps, but for somebody who's not familiar, who is the Maiden?
So the Maiden, I look at it from the framework of an archetypal season. And there's many women that have taught upon the archetypal seasons of woman. And traditionally, through the Celtic lineage, we would have Maiden, Mother, Crone, and it was based on that triskel, so the triangle, which in essence is a symbol of the womb as well. But scaling back, when the social, way of life changed and people were living longer, it actually opened up to, there's actually 4 archetypal expressions of woman. So you've got the Maiden, the Mother, the Marga, and the Crone energy. And the Maiden is the spring. It is the renewal, the blossoming. And when you look at a prepubescent girl, if you are a mother with a daughter, or if you have friends with young girls, or you might even remember in your own body, there's the breast buds are starting to develop, and there's this awkwardness, but there's this beauty and innocence, and there's a little bit of a rebellious streak coming through as well. So the Maiden is wow, there's a world out there. It is the blossoming and the opening. It is ripe with fertility. It is ripe with questioning and wonder and just being so free in the world. It's like the wild dance that's unrestricted, because in the innocence, the primal innocence of Maiden, she doesn't know any better. She's just transitioned from child, which is, the magical childhood where the imagination is everything, and slowly integrating into being embodied in her womanly body that's going through all of these changes. There is this beauty that I see in the Maiden energy. And the fact is that we have access to this. Doesn't matter what season you are in a woman, we have access to these archetypal energies, and we can connect with them at will, basically, with the intention. But the maiden, her initiation is through menarche, is through that blood rite, which is the first bleed. And why that is so important is because all of the imprints of what it means to be a woman will be happening around that time. And we can go into this deeper if you like, but it's very important for us as wisdom keepers, as mothers, as aunties, as guardians, to set up the space to protect the innocence moving through, but also to protect that space so that the information that a young girl transitioning from child to maiden is receiving is helping her to establish her body autonomy, her sense of self, her sense of place and belonging in the world. So, on permaculture principles, it's like zone 0 is here, and then how that interacts with the world at large. So it's a powerful, powerful time. Jane Hardwick Collins speaks about the energy. So if you scale back into your own experience of when your first bleed was, who you were, and the imprints that you were receiving around that time will also show up at the next rite of passage, which is through birth. And so it's really important to connect with these archetypal energies, that there'll be an energetic thread and imprint from child to maiden, and then from maiden to mother. That's also speaking into the language of maiden to mother in the sense of career and birthing projects. So not just primarily speaking about the physiological aspects of transitioning from maiden to mother. So she is so beautiful and amazing, and she's like just this free maiden. I envisage her as like wild flowing hair with like flowers growing up her, and she's got her feet in the mud, in the soil, in the dirt, in the grit, because she's still in the playful, wild expression, but she's a little bit swayed here and there. She is quite malleable in the sense of very susceptible to working with other people's beliefs. And so there's a grounding, like she's in the earth, but she's not fully strong in who she is, because that's the next journey to establish those roots and the foundation. So that's my image and my perspective of Maiden, and why she's so important to connect with.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. I love that. And I just have this real sense of like a young tree, like not strong, like swaying in the wind, and like having to dig down and discover like what her expression is in the world. And you spoke about why you wrote this book, but the power of that initiation, what does that look like? So in the book that you've shared the ceremony that you created for your daughter, and I'd love to go into that. But what at the core is this sense of initiation? What are we really trying to do when we initiate a girl into her womanhood?
Sure. In essence, it's a welcoming. It's open arms. It's welcoming into secret women's business, into the women's mysteries. It's like acknowledging that this young girl, this maiden, has come of age to now receive the wisdom which we, to some degree, for want of a better word, we kind of protect the children from, because we allow the children to be in the magical childhood and we preserve their innocence, and we are protectors and guardians of that. But when we open the doors and the gateway into womanhood, which is through the wisdom of the womb and through sensuality and sexuality and all the juice, that, okay, well, you're ripening now, you're welcome into this space. It's where we talk about the philosophies and the concepts of the red tent. It's following that red thread that we are connected from womb to womb. Why I think it's so important, I mean, I'm a ceremonialist, so this is what I do. I create ceremonies, and I find that ceremonies and rituals are portals, and we can draw upon this in times of need throughout our lifetime. And when we're feeling disconnected, we can go through our memory and the limbic imprinting to gather the wisdom and the remembrance of these key moments in time. And that's why sacred rites of passage are so important. And ceremony is so important because it's not an insignificant event, which for a lot of us kind of felt like we knew that it was a big thing, because a lot of us young girls were either anticipating like, oh, I'm going to join the secret club, or we were dreading it if we weren't connected to that. But we knew that there was an energy around it. So to have a ceremony and an opening and a welcoming establishes strong foundations for being okay with being in your body, okay with being a woman. It's a welcoming into your own lineage. It's a welcoming into your own womb wisdom. To be initiated by your mother and have your grandmother there, which I had the privilege to be able to create, is so amazing for the simple fact that when I was in my mother's womb, my daughter was energy imprint in the ovaries of me as I was developing. So to really honor and connect with that in a ceremonial context was amazing, so amazing. So the essence of it is about a welcoming. It's creating a connection, strong bonds, foundation, belonging, which is a fundamental human need, is to feel like you belong to something, to tribe, community, something bigger. It connects with this spirituality of creation energy, and to allow a young girl in her own way and own time to take a step forward into opening into the possibilities for her and what that means for her life. Whether she's like, oh my God, this is my jam, like just totally marinating in it. Maybe there's, mum, you're a bit weird, like whatever. You can lay the foundations in the ceremony and share concepts and beliefs, and then it's up to her to choose what fits for her. And this journey is about honoring her. It's not about the mother. It's not about the grandmother. Like, they'll have their own stories playing through because you have your own connection to it. But this is all about initiating a young woman to being connected to her body as a woman, that her body has changed. She has changed, acknowledging that change being significant, and then setting up the foundations for her to be curious and to question what fits for her journey in life, her journey as a person and a being in the world, and that she then has the capacity to draw upon the support system. So the greater context why I wove, and you'll see in the book, a few key people in her life. And this doesn't need to be for everybody, but for Aurora, that's what she needed, is to know that, okay, she's got we have an amazing relationship and connection. She can come to me about anything, but she might not want to talk to mum about a particular thing. And she knows she's got grandma. She's got nana. She's got ma. She's got aunties that she can go to feel safe to question different things. And she can draw upon the gifts and the wisdom of the women in her circle that are woven in through the red thread. They all have different ways of communicating, different backgrounds and knowledge and wisdom and humor to draw upon, where she knows that she is surrounded by a coven or a beautiful circle of women that have got her back in all different experiences that she may face navigating this world as a young woman. So that's like the full foundations. And everything on top of that is just like the icing on the cake. So once you get the connection right, whether you're doing that one-on-one with your daughter or you have a group, that's what you are weaving in. And how beautiful would that be? Like if we all took a moment to, place our hands on our womb and our heart to go, oh, imagine. Like just imagining yourself being woven into that vision. And if that's what you experienced as a young maiden, how different life would be for you. The choices that you would have made that would have been different. The boundaries that would have been in place from listening to other women's stories. That's why women's work is so powerful. Knowing how to listen to your womb and being gifted the wisdom of the cycles and be initiated into that womb wisdom. How different life would have been. And that's not to negate that you're exactly who you are in the body and have the stories that you have, because that's how it's meant to be. But you're just open to the possibility of, wow, that's profound and powerful in application. And the ripple effect, which I speak about a lot, is so immense, because not only has Aurora gone through this initiation, she's sharing that with her friends now that don't have that connection, and they're kind of like, oh, you're famous, you're on the cover of a book. And she kind of laughs, like, what does your mum do? She's like, oh, mum does all this weird witchy womb stuff. But she is that grounded, open person that her friends, which have a lot of shame, unfortunately, that's their journey. Aurora is now the go-to person for her peers. And that, hand on heart, is so amazing for me as a mother. And that's where the work becomes so powerful, because when we change our stories, we change the way that we relate to others and that others relate to us. And that's where it just goes, woof, woof, woof. It becomes so profound and amazing. So, yeah, that answers your question.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful answer, and so many layers to that. I just love, and I feel all just tingles. And one thing, there's a few things, but what you were just touched on there about how Aurora's been able to be that go-to person for her friends, I think is so powerful. She's obviously somebody who's been connected to this for her whole life.
Yeah.
Through you.
Yeah.
And witnessing in circle, in ceremony, it's not just you, that weird witchy mother.
Yeah.
It's everybody else in her family. Yeah. It's like, yeah, this is a thing. It's not just your mum. Yeah. And sometimes girls at that time can be a bit kind of, like you say, questioning this. Nobody else has a mum like this. So is my mum the odd one out, or are they like the odd one out, if you like, what's the way? And so I have this sense that Aurora is so grounded in this knowing. And even when her friends are questioning and, going, what is this? Like, that's, I don't know what you're talking about, or that's not my experience, or, the questions, instead of Aurora being swayed by the friends and going, yeah, my mum's weird or whatever, she's going, no, this is the thing, because she's had that whole experience and seen that it's not just you. Yeah. She can be really grounded in that. And I can imagine, I sense that would give her a lot of strength to then be that person and be that creator of change, and that pulse is rippling out from there. And I think that that's something that I've heard from women saying that they have always been so open with their child, but their child's not open to it, or has already like imbued shame from elsewhere. And despite their mother's best intentions, it's the mother's struggling to feel that that their daughter's really holding that wisdom and that strength and that lineage and that knowing, and isn't opening to them in perhaps the way they would like, or sort of feeling as confident as they would like them to feel. So I have a question that is something that has come to me a few times, and I would love your take on it, is if there's somebody listening who's got a daughter about this age and they really want to honor her and support her and create something like this, but their daughter's not open to it, do you have suggestions for how to approach that, or some alternatives, or like how would you approach that had Aurora not been open? Well,
that's interesting, because Aurora is so open. She was naturally, but my second born, Maya, is so we're going to have a totally different experience journeying with her. So she's 8 now. And I just want to share is that you've got to meet your children where they're at and see them as their own autonomous being, that they're on their own journey as well, and that as mothers we plant seeds, and that the education starts young, which is a big reason why I wrote the book too. It's not just for mothers of prepubescent, it's like mothers of daughters. So when you have a daughter, read it when you've got a baby, because even though when it comes to ceremony, which is rewarding for me because that's what I love, and I'm so grateful that, Aurora was totally into that. I know that Maya's not. And, I'll create the invitation, but I intuitively guess that she's not going to want the same journey that her elder sister. And that's great, because what that does is it provides an opportunity for me to be creative and to listen to my daughter, to what she needs. What does she need to feel a sense of belonging? What is her love language? Like really scaling it back to the basics. What helps her to feel really connected to me as a mother and as a woman and to the women in her community? So, for instance, working on the creative side, and I share some different creative solutions in the book, particularly when you're working with neurodiversity as well, which is really important and often not spoken about, which is why I wanted to create that in the book too, because that can kind of be silenced and pushed out of, sacred women's texts and things like that, which is so important because people's brains are different and the way that we experience the world is different. So the way that I envision with Maya would more than likely be a one-on-one journey, and I would like to create a special day for her. So it's a day of honouring and celebrating, and maybe she wants to go down the river, or maybe she wants to go shopping and get her bubble tea, which she loves and I low-key hate. I'm just like, what? But, that's what she enjoys. So it's about filling her basket up and filling her cup up and making her feel so loved and connected, and then slowly introducing the conversation and whether she wants to go there now, or knowing that you're just planting seeds that are there, that these seeds have been planted that are age appropriate, but where you can take the lead from your child rather than, this is what you're ready for and you need to know all of this stuff. So you could have books around that have this information that she can pick up, and maybe she doesn't want to learn it from you too. Maybe there's resistance. Like, I don't want to learn this from my mum, but maybe if it's presented in a book or an auntie or a friend is sharing resources around, she may be open to that. So you've just kind of got to gauge where your daughter or your young maiden is at. Working on one-on-one, asking her to create the ceremony with you. Ceremony doesn't have to be full shanti drumming, like we're going into this big mystical experience. Ceremony can be simple as sitting down together and taking a moment to breathe. It's about intention and connecting with the intention together of what it is that you're creating and the memory that you want to create and what you are opening into together. Ask her, and in doing that, what you're also doing is laying the foundations for healthy communication. You can actually, if you don't know, you ask somebody what they need and what they want and allow her to paint an image for you, even if as a mother you're like, oh, I really wish it was like red and flowers and candles and like all the beautifulness, but maybe she doesn't want that. Maybe, she just wants to go for a walk in the afternoon, or maybe she just wants to watch silly movies and have some popcorn and you're laughing and you're playing with your feet together and or plaiting each other's hair or whatever that is. Meet her on her level, speaking her language. And when you meet people where they're at, they're more open, and what you're doing is you're building the foundations of trust. And that's just from a ceremonial context, but you want to be doing this in lead up to. You want to be constantly creating opportunities to build trust, to build that relationship, that you are that go-to person. And if for some reason that thread's not there, I know that there's a plethora of different relationship dynamics, particularly with blended families or separated families. And for whatever reason, even establishing somebody else that that can disseminate this wisdom that perhaps your child has a connection to, do what you can, because that's the motherly journey as well, is scaling things out to go, okay, she's here, she's at this transition, and that lasts a few years, until the first bleed comes. And even then there's an integration period around that to go, okay, we're anticipating that this journey is coming up. You have a great connection, you don't. Just acknowledge it is what it is. What can you do as a mother to just scale out and go, right, what things can I put in place that will create that support system for her to flourish and to grow and to feel safe, and that you are weaving in the background to create that beautiful connection to allow her to have those experiences in the way that she can, using what you can, the resources that you can, And that's such a divine, loving thing to do as a mother, particularly those that are going through experiences of parental alienation or separated families.
Mm.
You know, I just want to talk about that because it's a very real thing.
Yeah.
And it's not all la-di-da. Like, there's so many different things to consider. And so creativity is going to be your power center to be able to solve problems before they arise, and to have systems or things in place or people in place or resources in place so that when she reaches for it, when she's ready, it's there. And also knowing and trusting that the wisdom that you shared along the way, and this is like it's almost like Menarche is like the initiation for mothers, like when their children leave and they're in teenage set and they want to go to parties. And it's just like, ooh, just got to like pray that all the foundational work that we've done have created those strong foundations that they can be and experience the world, because we know how crazy it can be. And it's almost like there's a thread of connection there. Just being really creative and open. And I've also shared this before, just quickly, because it's come through my field at the moment, is if there is a separation or a severing of the maternal tie or the bond, and for whatever external reasons, an idea is to either create an email account or create a box and start writing wisdom and letters or recording videos, and that when your daughter is of age or the child is of age, you can literally give them, this is the email account and the password. If you want to access it, boom. You're not forcing it, but the opportunity is there. And then they'll open this up to this big love bomb of all the things that you'd love to channel, but for some reason are unable to. Those blessings can be imprinted in that way and then chosen. And that can be a really powerfully healing opportunity too. And to also feel that you've done the best that you can with what you've got. And using technology is a really powerful way to do that. So, yeah.
Oh, Donna. Oh, you're so poetic, but also like really the way that you're drawing in all of these different experiences that are so true and real, and can lead people to feel like, you know, they're not doing the best that they can do if it doesn't look like this beautiful ceremony, just for example. And I am really loving this idea, like I can see you know, the way you're using your hands to express this as you were talking. It's like weaving this web, like you're doing this with your hands, like drawing, like weaving this web underneath. And I just was watching you and thinking, you talked about the mother journey as being at this time, as that child starts to find their individual sense of identity and use and express their will in the world as well. It's, you know, really honoring their desires and acknowledging and trusting them and letting them lead, rather than trying to put our own desires onto the child, who that can just push them away, perhaps, instead of, like you say, just meeting them where they're at and being open to saying, I hear you, like this is, you're in control of how you experience this. And then drawing in that village sense of, it doesn't all have to come from me, it can come from others. And I trust other people to be, you know, you're calling in the ones you do trust, and you're trusting that your child can reach out as they need to, rather than needing to kind of micromanage that and force something. And that's so powerful, and will set them up for, like you say, the teenage years and beyond into adulthood, that sense of sovereignty and getting to know their own, what they need and what their boundaries are, and how they want to live in the world, and how to express and claim their full power and potential in that way. It's like you're teaching that from, like, by modeling that and trusting them at such an important time. It just feels really, really special. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Oh, so good. And that leads me to another question that popped into my mind, and some of the work that I do, and I'm really sure that you do as well. And, you know, I think it's important to talk about is, you know, you're talking about not kind of putting your, you know, this is big for you as a mother, this is a big moment, and it can bring up a lot about how you experience your menarche and your relationship with your mother and the lineage and your relationship with your body and all of this. And we can so want it to be different for our children that we can do this thing of like wanting to put it on them. And this is a really important time to do that inner work and to look back and to heal your own story, right? So tell us how you might suggest that somebody listening who's sort of resonating with this sense of like realizing that they've got a story and an unhealed experience, or they want to do some work. What sort of things might you suggest that a woman could do for herself?
That's a really great question, and just briefly wanted to share, I created a Menarche healing ceremony for women, for mothers and, Margas as well. And I remember, so I have all these crazy ideas that come through, and it's taken me years to just trust it on it. Like, this is big work. So I'm like, I got this cool idea. Who wants to come to this ceremony? And witnessing it was, I get goosebumps, was so powerful. Like, I didn't really comprehend the scope of it until I was fortunate enough and privileged enough to create a template and then witness it play out. It was just wow. So I've done this work myself. My initiation wasn't the greatest, and the imprints that I had locked in around the time played out in patterns in my relationships in my life for years after. So when I started coming into womb wisdom and womb work, my initiation was from spirit. It was not from anyone. I didn't have any mentors. I had to go into the deep end and figure out this stuff on my own. And I remember connecting with her. And what I mean by her is, first of all, you create a moment. You need to create a sacred space. You need to create a safe space. So I'm fully safety queen over here about psychological safe spaces. And it's, if you're doing this work and you're dealing with any mental health issues, it's really important, first and foremost, to take care of yourself on an eldership, as like you're parenting yourself, to go, okay, I'm going to do this healing work. It may trigger some stuff, particularly if there's been abuse or some, big traumatic experiences around that time. To what support safety networks do you need to set up, whether it's through friends or family or professional help? If you're working with a professional, then to just let them know, hey, I'm going to start doing this work. I just need you to know, because things might come up in sessions that your psychologist or counsellor can then help you move through. But first and foremost, if there has been deep trauma there, it's really important to create that parameter of safety. What that will do will allow you to soften and open into unpacking the work. And just quickly on trauma, because I speak about trauma because a lot of women that I've worked with, their experiences have been traumatic. Some have been like a little bit, not non-ceremonious, it's just a thing that happened. But for a lot of women, there is a lot of shame and there is a lot of physical trauma around that. So whenever you're going into these stories, so you create the safe space, create a sacred space. So bring some candles or some beautiful essential oils or incense, and just allow yourself to step outside of the mundane. And that's creating a ritual container. And setting your intention into that allows you to psychologically connect with, oh, we're doing something important here. It's not just I'm going into the kitchen and making a cup of tea. Perhaps you're brewing the leaves with an intention, and you're bringing your energy and your awareness into, okay, I'm actually creating something important and special here. So you set the setting, and then you're allowing yourself to open into that timeline. So, and in the quantum field, all timelines exist around us, which is why we can continually repeat patterns. And it's why we can also access gifts and wisdom and medicine from lineages, because it's all available to us in that field. So it's really important, if there is trauma, to know that you're not going into those storylines to reanimate the trauma. You're going to connect with the imprints so that you can feel it and release it. You're not going into the mental sphere to replay images or sounds that you've heard or anything like that, because the body cannot differentiate trauma between then and now. So if you re-trigger yourself and you reanimate the trauma, your body will go through the same experience now as if it was happening. So when you understand that, you can set yourself up for success in that, to just be prepared that some uncomfortable sensations might come up, some uncomfortable memories or images, and that you're an adult human being, that you are strong and capable. You've chosen to do this work, and you can support yourself to move through whatever comes up. And this is a big resistance point for a lot of women doing womb work or healing work, because they don't want to face that. They don't want to open up Pandora's box. But it's totally possible for you to do the healing work without going into the story, which is a lot of the transformational healing workshops and journey work I do is teaches that. So you want to connect with her, how old you were, So for me, I was 15, and so I was a late bloomer, but I was 15, and there was a lot of chaotic relationship energy, dysfunction happening around. There was arguing. I thought I was going to die. So when I go into the moment of the night before my first bleed, I just connect. You just want to connect with what's the stories happening. Just start to envision, not going into all the things and the details, just what was the imprints that I was locking in. So for me, I locked in that being a woman means to be in pain. Being a woman is painful. Being a woman is to be alone, not believed, not listened to, that I am constantly surrounded by chaos that's external and I have no control over. So my womb's activating and coming online for the first time, and it's charging and pulsing, and I thought my appendix was bursting because I didn't have the language for it. But there's so much psycho, magical, spiritual things happening in this young girl's body that I was so alone and afraid that these imprints I locked in recreated these patterns. So when I could identify what the imprints were, then I could do the healing work. I could start to unpack them. And so what that looked like for me was a lot of journaling, a lot of connecting with the energy of that young girl, what she wanted to express that I wasn't able to. She wanted to dance. She wanted to go skateboarding with her friends. She wasn't allowed to do these things. There's a control thing happening. So I was allowing myself to break free from the inner shackles and the prison of that timeline that I had allowed myself to be contained inside of. So it's like freeing the maiden. And it's like freeing the mare onto the meadow, and she runs free. And it was like, whatever that looks like for you, connecting with what you liked to do at those times, what the free maiden loved to do unashamedly, the things that you do in secret. It's connecting with your pleasure, connecting with your growing and developing body, and all of that magic. So I would just find pathways to channel that creatively. So I was a practicing professional artist. I channel a lot of energy through art. I would channel a lot through ritual, because that's a creative outlet for me as well. I would channel a lot of that in my garden. I used to grow food and have mandala gardens, and just creating beauty around me that was simply just me being in the world and allowing myself to be in the world without feeling like I had to do anything, that I had to answer to anybody, that I could actually create the parameters of safety and security and belonging around me, which came from me. And that's when I came home to myself fully. And I was like, I am here now. And a really powerful thing that I share with my students in meditation. So if you're connecting with her, you're doing womb work, you're letting go, releasing any emotional debris, imprints. There might be a lot of water, a lot of tears to come, shaking. There might be rage and anger, just allowing yourself to express that creatively where it's conducive to your health and well-being, not projected and creating destructive energy. So allowing yourself to be in that. And when you connect with her, and there'll be a moment, because you'll go into the reaction and the response to whatever's happening, because you're a mature woman now that knows what happened wasn't okay, or that you wish it could have been better. So there's a point of connection where you want to heal and recreate. And when you connect with her, I feel, and you may also feel, your body drop. There's a magical thing that happens. It's like there's a connection point where you meet her. And a powerful thing to do is to place your hands on your heart and your womb and speak out loud. I'm here now. I'm here now. I'm here now. and sit with that and allow that to reverberate through your being, and allow her to receive those words and for you to receive that longing that she may have been calling to you for years, and that doesn't matter what's happened, you're here now. And that's the most important part. So you can let go of the guilt, the shame. You could be a 75-year-old woman plus doing this work now and still create the opportunity for healing, that it doesn't matter that so many years or lifetimes pass, you're here now. And that's of utmost important. Acknowledgement and recognition is really powerful for your healing journey to move forward. And then you can use your creativity and connecting and asking her what she needed to hear, and you can give that to her as a wise and embodied woman to go, hey, look at us, like we are safe in the world and we're doing all these cool things, and look at our life now. And that you can kind of welcome her into your arms and integrate her. I have a guided journey actually called Healing the Wounded Child, which I'd love to share as a link for this. It's on SoundCloud.
Thank you.
Just as a little gift, which is that process. It's about really calling her in and integrating, particularly the rebellious teenager.
Beautiful. That would be so special. Thank you so much. The work you've just described there it's profound. And I love that you talk so much about the importance of safety. I think absolutely when we're accessing such critical moments in our life, and like you say, the ripple, it continues, it's embedded through all of our lives and rites of passages and day-to-day moments, like you said, about playing out in relationships now and those dynamics and the way we feel about ourselves, and then using that feminine power of a gift of expression and creativity and channeling that into medicine for ourselves and potentially for others too. Just really love the way you described, like, I'm here now. It's very special. Thank you so much for sharing that. So gratefully received. And I'd love to include the journey as well. Gorgeous. Oh, okay. So as we approach the end of our conversation, Donna, I would just love to just touch on, for people listening who are interested in finding your book. And it's such a beautiful book. Like, I know that your intention behind it as well, because I read it in here, was, you said there were books on what's happening in puberty, what's happening in the body, and moontime wisdom. But for this, you've gone much deeper into the sacred and the rites of passages and that spiritual aspect. And, you've included information on, what's happening in the body and the cycle, and, from that practical kind of knowledge point of view, and puberty as an initiation and hormones. You've also included in here, the story of Aurora's own ceremony with pictures, but you've also guided with, some mothers listening can really create with their child, like, their own experience. And you've put loads of ritual ideas in here, and different alternatives and ways of it was in a format for actually crafting ceremony, which I think is just brilliant. You've really detailed, like, how you can actually create the ceremony for yourself. So as well as womb wisdom at the back, which is just such a beautiful book. It's just so full of really, really important wisdom that women will get so much out of for themselves, whether they have children or not, right? Like, whether they have a cycle or not, no matter which stage of life they're at. But then even, like you say, especially for mothers of daughters, to read it now, however old their child is, to connect in with what's to come. I just adore it. I think it's such a beautiful book, and I really congratulate you.
Thank you.
And I'm really
that.
And I'm excited because this is not all. It doesn't end here, right? What's next for you? What are you up to next?
So at the moment, I'm building out my new website, which is a mammoth task, hence the lack of sleep at the moment in my creatrix mode. So on top of I create transformational healing courses, online courses, home study program. I do facilitators training. I do business mentoring, like all of that. And I've got this book, which I actually smashed out 25,000 words when I was pregnant with my son Zenith. I went away for a weekend. And actually, I did that within less than 24 hours. So when things are on, they're on with me. They just flow. And that book is Maiden to Mother. So this is part of a legacy series. And legacy is a really core imprint in me of what I'm here to do and here to educate and inspire and other people in the world. And it's what gives me the drive and courage to keep on keeping on. Sometimes when you just want to bury down in blankets and go, no, it's just, Donna, you're here for one lifetime. You got some stuff to do. Get up, girlfriend. So the next book is Maiden to Mother, and that is the journey of sacred pregnancy, conception. So this is the interesting thing with the names of the books too, is like Maiden, yes, it's about initiating the young girls, but as you mentioned, you can get so much out of it yourself. It's the same for the next book. So it's called Maiden to Mother because it speaks about that rite of passage as an initiation, but it's also for mothers deepening into their journey. You don't have to be in that particular stage because there'll be healing work and connection points to do if you feel like you missed some key wisdom in that. So I'm kind of like filling the gaps. And again, I looked at what was available in the world, and there's some amazing resources and amazing teachers. And I kind of am a bit of an edge walker in the sense that I'll gather missing things that I feel need to create a whole picture while still honoring other people's work. So this is more about the shamanic birthing and the magic and the medicine that you can access in the birthing field. So I have free birth 3 babies at home, just at home, because birth was no big deal for me. And I don't want to discount that it can be a big deal. But for me, that was the imprint that I had. I was like, I'll just squat out the back and have a baby. And I know that not everybody is wired that way, but I was, and it created a lot of freedom. I also came up against the system and was outcast. And I knew that when I chose that for my first free birth, that what I was doing was not about me and it wasn't about this baby. It was about the women to come and to let them know what is possible. And I'm not saying that every woman needs to go out and free birth. What I'm saying is that we have the opportunity to create pathways to connect with our womb and our body and our ancestral wisdom to create more embodied, powerful birthing choices. And I'm a firm advocate for that with continuity of care and really acknowledging the power of women's work and the women's wisdom, midwifery and doulas and all of that, while still advocating for our own autonomy as birthing women. And how important, like, in my opinion, being in the season of mother and a biological mother, like that is the most powerful work because we're birthing generations. And when we understand the role of that, it's huge. And that's what that book is about. And then the next one will be Marga, when I go through my menopausal experience, and I'll write about that. And I don't share, I know a lot about that and I've sat with it and I've listened and I've explored and researched, but out of respect, I don't speak on it or offer counsel on that because I haven't journeyed through it myself. So everything that comes through me is from lived experience and research, and I kind of fill in the gaps. And I feel that that's why people trust me. Is because I'm not just speaking things that I don't know of. I'm actually I've gone through very real lived experiences on that. So that's the next book, and it's like going to be probably like 4 times the size of Maiden. And Maiden I wanted to keep as a guidebook and like a weekend read, quite light, so it wasn't too heady, so that it's an easy read, whereas the next one's going to be all power.
Brilliant. Bring it on. I can't wait to read that one too. And so where can people find your book and you? So I've got your Instagram as at wise_woman. Woman with a B in it for womb. So WOMBAMAN. And your website is www.wisewoman.com.
And I've also got donnaraymond.com.au. That's got my blog on it. So for those that appreciate my writing from a broad spectrum of, because I'm kind of multi-passionate. So it's got like a whole mixed bag of stuff on there. That's got a lot of my writing key pieces. But yeah, the Wise Woman website is under a bit of a transformation at the moment. So I'm not sure, by the time that this is released, it should be up online and ready. You can find me on Facebook as well. And the book is available from most online retailers. So if you go on to, depending on if you're on Amazon or Book Depository, or Barnes and Noble is another one. But when the new website's up, I'm actually going to have an ebook available for those that are just really keen, if they, have devices that they want to read it. I like traditional publishing because I like the tactile experience of a good book and the smell of books.
So do I.
So yeah, that is an option. But then I'll also have the ebook available as well. I've just got to set that up, ready to go. And I will also be, when I finish crafting the Wisdom School website, there will be a course. There'll be a couple of courses actually from the Maiden perspective, and then the healing the menarche wound as well. So what I mentioned before, the journey that I took women on, I'm going to recreate that in a way that fits to provide through the digital aspect. It's not, when you gather together in person, the work is always more powerful. But if you don't have access to that, the best that I can provide is to have these experiences available. And whether I do a facilitator training on that, I'm not sure yet. If people want it, I'll create it. Yeah, that's right.
Love it.
I just listen and then fill in the gaps. Yeah.
So special. Thank you so much, Donna. It's been just such a real joy. Like, I feel just so joyful just listening to you, just talking with you. You've got such a beautiful spirit, and the work that you do is really super profound, and we're so lucky to benefit from your incredible creatress energy that just births things so channeled and quickly as well. So I can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank
you. It's been really lovely to chat.
You're very welcome. Thank you for everybody for taking the time, coming on the journey to listen to us today. That's all part of it too. I feel that connection of weaving, can feel people, and that's really inspiring when you connect in that way, creating of people that receive this and share that and their own stories and takeaways from that's really powerful too.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening in. If you're loving this podcast and you'd love to help me spread the wisdom shared, please leave a review or rating, or share this with somebody who you think would love to listen in. I'm really passionate about creating ripples of change and getting this information to more women, girls, and people with a cycle so that they can reclaim their cyclic natures too. And if you'd love to dive in deeper with learning more about how to connect with your cycle and rites of passages, come and join our free Wild Flow Circle community, or choose a course and learn with me on my online learning hub. All the links are in the show notes. And until next time, be well and go with the flow of your cyclic nature.